Good Wednesday, everybody. It is March 25th. Lynne Wester here live with you. And sometimes you just got to phone a friend. And so I've brought my friend and colleague Nathan, who I've known for a long time. He works and lives and breathes with Avid. And so do my friends Kate and Eric. And they are our sponsor partners and are sponsoring scholarships for attendees of our new AI webinar series. I'm going to let you all, we're going to talk about that some, but let's let everybody kind of get online, get up to speed. I'll let you know that this week we are in Chicago at our sold out Four Pillars of Donor Relations conference. And we are talking about the four pillars of donor relations and all kinds of other good content writing for donors. We're talking about how to advocate for donor relations at your shop. So we're really just having a community conversation here at our conference. Our next conference is in June in Nashville, and that's all about the donor experience. And we're partnering with Charity Water. First time ever, Charity Water is partnering with a company like ours. So we're really excited. We're going to go through their donor experience. Nathan, they built out a physical donor experience that they can bring donors through, and it is spectacular. So I'm so excited for our
Yeah.
attendees.
I
And
have
then
yet to go to it, but it's definitely on the
it's
bucket
on the
list.
bucket list, right? And then the next day, they're going to tell us how they do it and like why building physical experiences or like activations are really important. So I
Yeah,
think that's going to be like, it's the first of its kind, right? Like no other, like we've done it for events or anything, but not a permanent place
sure.
to experience your mission, especially if your mission isn't like there, like a museum or other things where not everybody can experience it on a daily basis. So it's a really cool concept. I would love to hear where you guys are joining us from. If you have any questions, if you're struggling with a decision this week or just want to chat through something happening in your shop or talk about it. Nathan, why don't you tell people a little bit about Avid and what Avid does, and also your brand new gift that you're giving to the nonprofit industry? But would love to hear just a little bit more about Avid. For some people, it might be a new venture or a new company for them.
Sure. Yeah, and really it is. I mean, Avid's been around for, in some ways you could say it's been around for about 5 or 6 years. In other ways, it's really been more, public facing, system and platform for about a year and maybe a year and a half or so. Because Avid was actually birthed out of an agency that I actually worked at for about 8 or 9 years. And it was sort of a tool in the background that was being used to help the nonprofits we were working with understand what's going on in their data and where should they go next, and a few other technical things in the background. And eventually that slowly kind of snowballed into, I think there's actually a really meaningful solution here for more nonprofits. So Avid is the fundraising operating system. In short, it sits on top of your whole fundraising tech stack, connects all of your tools and your data, usually for the very first time. So it's no longer living in a bunch of silos, but it can actually be brought together to be used to help kind of close the gap between insight and execution. So you can see what's working, what's not working, where should I go next, but ultimately give you an AI assist to go actually generate the campaigns and the audiences and the segmentation in real time to help you actually lead to growth. So anyway, we could dive a whole lot deeper into Avid, but the most exciting thing that I'm excited about right now is the brand new Avid and Wyland benchmarks. And so I can drop a link in the comments here as well. But in short, the benchmark that we just launched is in real time. It's updated every single month with live data, so you can see performance, your performance compared to over 1,000 different nonprofit organizations, and not just the high level stuff like revenue and average gift size, which is okay. It's interesting to track that, but diving into things like, well, how does the contactability of a person on your file impact their likelihood to go upgrade? Like, you can get into that level of depth. And so there's a lot of really interesting things there that I'd encourage you to go check out. If you go to avidai.com/benchmark, you can get access completely for free to dive into all those insights and check in every month to stay up to date with what's happening. What are the trends, opportunities, challenges going on
Yeah.
in the nonprofit world?
We've dropped the link in the chat. We've also put it up on the screen for all of you. As many of you know, I am a self-proclaimed data nerd, and I've even volunteered for the Fundraising Effectiveness Project. But what I find about that data is by the time it gets out to the community, it's old. It's, more than a quarter old. And as you all know, our world is changing so fast these days, and donations, donors, like it's hard to keep up with. And so what Avid and Wyland have done is they've put data at the tip of our fingertips, just like the data in your database is a day old or the same day, depending on how you run your data warehouse. And we won't get into all that nerd stuff, but you know what I mean. And so to have something that is refreshed more frequently, my hope is also that eventually we can pull in more organizations. 60% of my base is higher ed. And so we have this one report, the CASE VSE report, which is the Voluntary Supportive Education, but it comes out once a year and it showcases all the data from the past year. And so you're already a year behind when you get the data. So even if we don't have a ton of educational institutions, we can get a peek into different sectors, because we also know that if I give to a museum or healthcare, I also probably give to education, or, donors give to between 5 and 9 nonprofits a year in our old data sets. Now, we got to see what happens here. Does
Sure.
it also compare across? Like, does it tell you like how much is the average gift per year? Nathan, what's been your favorite takeaway from the data?
Yeah, well, shameless plug, in about a week, next Tuesday on the 31st, we're doing a webinar to go deep on what are the biggest trends and challenges and opportunities and all that sort of stuff. And I've next to me here, I have a whole running list of like, what are all the interesting things that I'm seeing in the data? And there is a lot. But the things I'll just kind of tease today. One, some of the trends we've been seeing the past few years remain constant. Like we're seeing revenue is relatively flat. The past 12 months, it's been up a little bit, just ahead of inflation. But you look at like kind of the long tail, and it's relatively flat. Um, and then when you look at donor counts, you have fewer donors who are giving more money to kind of keep revenue where it's at, which again we've seen for the past several years now. But what's really interesting to me is kind of what's happening under the hood, which is kind of two things. One is that I don't think that trend is going to last forever, because the pipeline that we're looking at for mids and majors is starting to erode a little bit.
Mhm.
We're seeing retention becoming more and more difficult for those donors. We're seeing upgrade becoming more and more difficult. So getting more people to choose to give at that level is harder and harder. And then on the actual acquisition side, there's a massive shift that's happened. The past 2 or 3 years, I think we've been watching as an industry the shift from offline kind of first acquisition to more of an online first acquisition. And we just kind of tipped over the 50% mark the past 2 or 3 years. But then in 2025, it jumped to about 65% of new donors are coming in from online channels.
Really?
And there's a lot we could dive into there, and different verticals and different kind of portions of the sector that are maybe driving some of that more than others. But that's a huge shift in giving behavior that's happened in the past 12 months. um
And
and
is that dollars and donors, or, which
Ooh, that's
is
a good
it?
question.
Because,
It's new number of new donors.
okay.
But now I'm like, okay, I should go look at the dollar amounts there too, and how much is that shifting as well.
Because
But like,
traditionally, right, the dollars have been coming in analog, I would say, right? Like
mm,
80% or something of money came in. And while digital is growing, it hadn't yet even gotten even, and I'm a digital first girl, but I'm a data first girl, right? And
sure,
so
yeah.
and it's interesting because globally, certain countries are actually getting rid of checks. So
Mm,
New Zealand already got rid of checks, and the charities survived that shift. They were very fearful about that, but it ended up, working out. And now a lot of donor advised funds are getting rid of their check process for ACH, and things like that. So I do, and I think there's less worries about how secure digital giving is than there used to be, and there's more ways, Apple Pay, Venmo, all of those things that impact this. My part of my challenge as a donor relations professional is the online giving experience a good positive one?
mm.
Or are we making some of our online giving forms so complicated that, you got to give them your social security number, your birth date, your firstborn child to make a gift and select among hundreds of funds. And we're thinking about our experience sometimes more than the donors. And then the other thing I worry about is a donor gives online and then somebody mails them a receipt. And I'm like, so you're just contradicting. The donor said, hey, here's my way. And you said, you know what? You're going to do it our way. And so do we have those welcome series and those donor relations communications done well for digital donors? Because sometimes our systems, meaning our processes don't move as fast as the donor is even moving at this point.
Yeah. Lynn, I think we're thinking on the same wavelength here. I mean, the past, several years of work I've done in the nonprofit space, I've done a lot of research on just what is that giving experience looking like. Combining that with testing and optimization of how do you go improve it and optimize it. But one of the most shocking things that I would continually see, so I would dive in and help put these like large research studies together where we would donate to say 200 organizations. We'd map the whole experience. What's it like to be a donor? We'd look at the next 30 days, sometimes 90 days, sometimes longer, of what's the onboarding look like? How are you cultivating? And I always get excited, like, okay, what's going to be the cool new innovative thing that this organization or that organization is doing? But the majority of the time I'm kind of let down because like there's more things that are just fundamentally broken than there are cool innovative things that are happening. And a lot of it's like basic blocking and tackling type of
Fundamentals,
stuff.
right?
Yeah.
Fundamentals.
It's the new donor welcome series. It's like send something right away to say thank you. And I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head at this point, but shocking stats as to how many people wouldn't send a receipt at all or any kind of confirmation or thank you, even within a 30-day window. Like, what
Nathan,
are we
hence
doing?
my career. Like I literally go to conferences or I go on the internet and I'm like, so you're going to need to thank your donors. And they're like, yeah, they get an automated receipt. I'm like, right. So they're going to need a thank you. And they're like, well, we don't have the time or the resources for that. And I'm like, then maybe you don't need that donor because like it's not just polite, it's good sound fundraising practice. And I think, we need to discuss that more, that what happens after the gift is just as, if not more important than what is happening before the gift. And yes, we have low retention rates. And one of the reasons we do is we're not putting the time, effort, and resources into the post donation behavior, right? Once I finally make it through your giving site, which can be difficult. Do you know what I mean? And so um it's the experience is sometimes I get a receipt, sometimes I don't, because I, like you, do a lot of research and test gifts and experiences, and then I go to people in real life and they're like, yeah, but that's an extra stamp, that's an extra effort, we don't have any staff in that area. And I'm like, then how do you expect people to return? Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
totally. And then there's people that we're letting go because we're not doing that type of stuff. Those are actually the most valuable people, right? It's not the new donor that we're trying to get in the door. It's the second year, it's a third year donor. And if we don't put the time and energy and effort and investment in to go retain them, then we're just on this hamster wheel of acquisition, which is never going to be as fruitful as just retaining that donor that just came in today.
Exactly.
But
It's 5 to 7 times cheaper to keep the one you have.
yeah,
Like that's basic math. And every for-profit business understands it. And somebody yesterday at our conference here said, why don't nonprofits understand that? And I said, if I knew the why, I would stop teaching and just be like, here, just fix this. But also it's the scarcity mindset. It's the idea
Mhm.
that we have to acquire more new donors. It's all of these things about way we've been structurally set up as well that we are battling against. It's also what used to work doesn't work with
Sure.
donors, right? The way we talk to them, the way we and it's also overwhelmedness of systems, and that's why I like things like Avid that help make your system better rather than I don't need to replace the system. And I think that is also why like we're doing this AI webinar series and we'll drop it for you. And Avid has graciously gifted people scholarships. So apply for a scholarship if you can't afford the $200 for the 4 webinars. Understood, not everybody has the same resourcing level. And so Avid has provided scholarships, but AI is also helping us not replace staff members. And I want to make that very clear. We've had many conversations, our teams together, about generative AI and things like that. But first, we have to put in baseline understandings of what is AI, how it can, I call it assisted intelligence, not artificial intelligence, because I actually think there is no such thing as artificial intelligence. If it's artificial, then it's not intelligence, it's knowledge. But you know what I mean? It's not,
Yeah.
because intelligence means reasoning and thinking. And I don't know, I'm biased a little bit towards my assisted intelligence. And so
I like it.
how do we use AI to make our work better, not to replace our work? Because when AI first came out, Nathan, I was very gutted because I would read these articles in industry. I would read them in certain publications, and it would say AI can replace meaningless tasks like thanking donors.
Oh, there's so much wrong with that statement.
Right.
Ah.
But you know you've seen it, right? You know you've seen it. Like, just have it write all the donor thank you emails and have it do all these little menial tasks. And I'm like, so building a relationship is a menial task. Help me understand how that is, right?
Or don't. I don't want to dive
No,
deeper into that because
right.
I just
I don't want to live in
fundamentally
that
that
world.
seems to
I don't want to live in that world. And my
no.
friend Pierre Kawand, he's really talented and he teaches people about personalities and psychology. And he's like, so basically now we have people using AI so heavily sometimes that their AI chat is emailing another AI chat. It's just two AIers going back and forth. And I think we can't afford that in fundraising because it is
No.
a human business.
Yeah.
So
Fully.
how do innovative companies like Avid balance the human-based
Mm,
fundraising that we all know and love with the need for scaling operations, thanking donors at scale, building donor journeys? And how does data play a role in that? Like this data that you've just given us as this gift
yeah.
from the industry, like how does that help us without replacing us?
Totally. I mean, my head's going in a bunch of different directions.
That's okay.
On
Welcome.
the replacement piece, so my buddy David Morin, he's actually just joined the Build Good team. He's a good LinkedIn follow, and he actually has a really good podcast too, talking about AI things. So that's a good follow as well. But he was talking I think it was a few weeks ago on his podcast, talking about this whole concept of is AI going to replace people specifically in fundraising? And I really liked what he said about it, which was basically like nonprofits run lean teams, right? We don't have this sort of bloat of these massive teams where you could afford to go cut 20% of them and replace them with an AI agent or a bot. We already have scrappy teams. And so as nonprofits and as fundraisers, we almost have the greatest advantage and upside of bringing in AI assisted, I'll go with that assisted word that you used, into our teams because it can help us scale what we're doing already and have the capacity to do all those kind of basic blocking and tackling things that maybe we haven't had the capacity to do before. So it's definitely as I've just the past few years, as I'm diving in deeper with some organizations, learning more about kind of what are the challenges that are keeping us from doing even some of these basics. It's not a lack of know-how. It's not a lack of strategy or a lack of knowledge. It's trying to close that gap between what we know we should be doing and our ability to actually go execute it. And I know something like we talk about a new donor welcome series is like so simple in concept, but one of the hardest initiatives to just get over the line because it takes a lot of input from people to go craft like what really is the flow that we want someone to go through to be onboarded in a meaningful way, to get connected with the human being, to establish that relationship. But there's a bunch of different tools and data that's got to come into play to go automate that type of stuff. And so it's really complicated to get over the line. And so that's where that's one way that AI tools can assist us now to help us kind of scale that human relationship is not to go just set it free to do the quote unquote menial task of thanking donors, but to use it to help us go add some deeper personalization, to go bring data together, to go help manage our segmentation, to go move data from here to there in a meaningful way, and do it automatically and instantly, rather than us having to do it manually with imports and exports and all that sort of stuff. So it helps us actually start to keep up with the expectations that donors have of us today, which is going to help us scale those relationships. And that's, I mean, when I think about using any AI tool today, there's definitely that fear that the term AI slop is just going to come into all of our communications.
And some
And
of it already has, Nathan.
Mhm.
I've been reading and getting some communications, and it's clearly AI, not the M dash, folks. I've been using the M dash before AI was around, and I'm like, quit, you stole my thing. But
Right.
the not this, but that, the common structures, and it's Giving Day season, in case you haven't missed it. And I am seeing so many Giving Day emails that have clearly been written by AI and not edited in any way. And it is sloppy. And that's why
Yeah.
I love that you just said, we're talking about moving data, we're talking about moving process, we're talking about prioritizing things. Because as Heather in our chat said, and I dropped David's LinkedIn into the chat for
Oh,
everyone
perfect.
as well, because I connected and followed him as well. But using AI to help my single person fundraising shop is a must. Nobody said we have to use AI to generate content.
Mm,
So what I challenge people to do, and what part of our series is going to be doing, other than um, hey, do you have an AI policy? Do you have an ethical use policy? Like for my company, for example, we are hired by many nonprofit clients to do craft communications. We are
yeah.
not using AI to craft those communications because we're being paid for that service. So that is unethical then for me to turn around and draft your donor comms using AI, right? But we also use it though we use it to source data. We use it to do research. We use it to analyze data. I use AI a lot for that. My favorite use of AI selfishly is I write conference sessions, and I hate writing the learning outcomes, the boring learning outcomes, Nathan. So I throw
Yes.
my session in and I have it trained to give me actionable, interactive learning outcomes, because it's just a simple, but it's a tool.
Yeah.
It doesn't write my session descriptions for me, and it's not delivering my slides or my speech.
Yeah. And
Therein
personally,
lies.
when I use it, it's in that same when I use it on the content side of things, I use it in the same kind of mentality. Like if I'm trying to create something that's like net new and original thought, I'm not going to Claude or
No.
Chat or whatever to go tell me what I think, right?
Think. Yes.
If I have something already intact that I've put together, whether it's a deep dive on like what we're seeing in benchmarks or something else, okay, use it to go help me craft a social post, or use it to go help me summarize or create the short description or the learning objectives like you're
Uh,
talking about.
the learning objective.
Fantastic use. When I think about it on the fundraising side, um, one way that I am excited about how it can be used on the content side is not to necessarily do everything from scratch for you, but put you in the seat where you can guide the strategic approach. What are the kind of brand guides? What's the tone of voice? What's the, how do you want to go about your segmentation and that sort of stuff? You give it the guardrails, you write kind of the core appeal, but hey, we might have 5 or 6 or 7 or 20 different segments that we want to go talk to in a unique way. And it's going to take the 10% tweak of the copy to go talk to this person in a unique way. Well, that would take hours and maybe weeks, if not months, to get a whole campaign together before. Now that can be done in a matter of minutes, but you're still in the driver's seat of how am I engaging this person? How am I trying to build the relationship and steward the relationship? What's the right things that we should be saying? And then leaning on the AI tool to go help you do it at scale and reach more people in a more, personalized way.
I totally agree, Nathan. One of the things that I have been dismayed to see, and I'm sure in your tests where you give a lot of gifts and then do it as part of a research study, you see a lot of what I would call buffet communications. And it's like, whether you're a donor, friend, alumnus, and they list out all these people that they should
Yeah.
have segmented for, but they are sending the dear friend, they're still sending
Mhm.
in 2026 the dear friend emails, right? And I'm like, for me, it strikes me as ridiculously lazy slash it screams that we don't know who you are and we didn't segment. So, and I know that not everybody has the time, resources, or good data to segment, which is that's a secondary, an issue. But then it makes me not want to retain, because you actually don't care about me who gave, because I didn't just go out there and spray $100 to 100 charities and say, oh, whoever gets the money. Like, I didn't drop it from the sky and say, whoever gets it gets it. And
Right.
I'm going to do the same thing with all of you. And
Yeah.
because, as you know, giving is a very emotional, personal decision. It's
Mhm.
90% emotion, 10% ration. And so then when I've made that emotional decision to give to your nonprofit, and you treat me like, like your gift, quote, quote, no matter the size. Well, you know the size.
Yeah.
You
You
know
should.
all this information about me. Why then am I getting a communication that I could swap out and give to 100 other people, and it
Mm.
doesn't make any difference? So to me, that scaling, that using my data, and I think also maybe the AI tools like Avid can tell us, you know what, Lynn, you only have time for 2 personalized segments. Got
Mm.
it. How about your loyals? How about your first timers? Prioritizing ROI wise, who is worth the extra effort when it comes to resourcing? Because right now our only determiner, Nathan, is what? Dollar amount, which is the crappiest determiner of all crappy. And if you're still saying, well, at $1,000 they get this and 500 they get this, that has nothing to do with me as a person, because my first gift is always going to be my crappiest gift because I don't know you.
Yeah. Well, and that you see that in the data. You can go to that benchmark and go actually see that in the fundraising trends there. Yeah, your first gift is going to be smaller. That second gift can be dramatically larger
Of
because
course.
you've built that level of trust, right? If you've been stewarded well and you understand, okay, this is how they're using my funds and my money. And oh, I've seen some stories and examples of how people are meaningfully being impacted right now through the gift that I just made. Well, yes, my second gift is definitely gonna be larger than my first gift. And
Absolutely. So, what do you think is the barrier for most shops on AI adoption, or looking at it in a,
Mm.
rather than having AI do this for me, have AI be a partner or a guide? What's stopping, or what may be some of the obstacles that we need to think about, especially as we go into this AI series together?
Yeah. I mean, I'm think of a few things. One, I think there's a tremendous amount of, hype and promise around what AI tools are supposed to be able to do for us. And then we go, you know, start our you paid ChatGPT account and think that's gonna, like, revolutionize the world, and then we just use it to maybe refine some copy here and there, and it gives us a little bit of, like, marginal time savings, and that's great, but it's not nearly the transformation that maybe it's been promised to us to be. There was a report that Virtuous and Fundraising AI published maybe a month ago now, maybe a little less than that. But it was basically looking at, okay, there's about 90% or so of nonprofits that were surveyed that said, yeah, we're using AI pretty actively, at least in one area, if not more. But then the deeper question of, has it made any sort of like strategic impact? Are you seeing an ROI from it? And that number drops all the way to like 7% of
Mhm.
organizations that are using it are seeing it actually make any sort of significant impact.
Yeah.
So there's a ton of hype, there's a ton of promise. Reality feels like it's not really doing all that much for most people. And the soapbox I've been on as of late is that I don't think we're ever going to see the ROI that AI tools have promised if we continue to live in a world where we have disconnected tools and disconnected data and disconnected teams.
Mhm.
Because you can use your AI to go help you maybe get a better sort of predictive score around who should I be talking to next. But I still have to close the gap between, okay, here's who I should be talking to. How do I talk to them? When do I talk to them? What channels should I be using? What's all the creative I need to put together? How do I do that in a way that's personalized and segmented? How do I get my data from here to there to talk to these people in real time? And there's just this kind of like waterfall of all these things I still have to do manually. So it doesn't really help if all of our tools and data are disconnected. And that's really one of the core reasons we built Avid, is to solve that problem and then bring that AI assist in along with it to help close that gap between I have all this cool data, but how do I take action on it and do so in a way that actually saves me time and helps me do more of the right things?
And I dropped the link to the virtuous adoption report that
Oh,
was done in the chat for folks too. Again, part of our goal here, Nathan, with all of our folks that are on. And if you have questions for Nathan about Avid, but if you have questions about AI, if you have questions about nonprofit comms, like we're just here talking like normal about the AR series. Whatever you want to chat about, please feel free. I would agree with you about the usage versus ROI. I think there's a lot of people using AI, and I think that sometimes for the general platforms, that's just the $20 a month kind of deal. The investment to make it this much better is too high. The adoption, like any software, you have to put work into it. And in order to get generic, old, out of the box, non fundraising trained, nonprofit trained
mhm.
ChatGPT or Claude or whatever it is, Gemini, to be
Yes.
good enough, it's the juice isn't worth the squeeze yet. And we have been teaching that. For example, somebody said, early on, so should we use it to write our donor thank yous? And I was like, all right, I'm going to go as an expert, quote unquote, in this, who's been writing donor thank yous for 25 years. And I'm going to go see how long it takes me to get a donor thank you that I would actually put in front of a donor, not a big donor,
Right.
not a little donor, a donor, one that I would say, this is DRG approved.
Mm.
It took me 3 times as long to write the prompts and train it and do all the things than I could have just written the 4-sentence to 6-sentence thank you in the first place.
Right.
Because of course it started out with the Mad Libs on behalf of, thank you for your gift of, to, you know what I mean? It was no better than crappy templates. And frankly, we have a samples gallery they could have downloaded 5 times better in the time, cut and pasted and replaced, control find F,
Right.
like,
Right.
and that's why for a while we avoided doing any AI education until A, some of the tools had caught up with it, and until B, we learned enough to say, here's an effective way to use tools that isn't a generation. Here's
Mm.
effective ways to think about AI usage in your life. Like, hey, organize your grocery store list because it knows the layout of your store and stuff. But
Yeah.
the amount of time sometimes it isn't. Now, once you have it programmed, okay, but then when their algorithm changes, you've got to sometimes start all over again, unless you're paying a ton of money or you have a specific tool. But if you're thinking that, and so that resonated with me when you said, yeah, so the usage is there, the
Yeah.
ROI is low, because then what I get out of AI, I have to edit.
Yeah.
Well, I should edit.
Absolutely, you should.
Copiously edit. And so I went to some friends in the industry and I was like, am I an AI dummy and I don't know what I'm doing and I don't know how to get it? And they're like, no, in the amount of time that you hone in on the prompts, get it perfected, talk about donor voice, you could have just written the thank you, which
Yeah.
is an interesting commentary also on asking and thanking and fundraising in general. Is people say to me, well, how do I start thanking my donors and everything? Put 2 calendar blocks on your calendar, Monday mornings and Friday afternoons. Sit and thank donors. Like,
Yeah.
make it part of your behavior the way you've blocked time to create a solicitation or an appeal.
Mhm. I think one of the things that we're going to see more and more of is, yeah, I saw someone, this was like a LinkedIn post I saw maybe a month or so ago, talking about kind of, are you familiar with Zapier? Like
Yeah, I
it
love
moves,
Zapier. We use it at the company all the time.
it's an amazing tool,
It
but
is.
it's a wrapper on top of like APIs, right? So
Pretty much.
APIs became a thing. And if you wanted to use them, you got to know some certain level of code. This is beyond my technical ability to go connect all the pipes. And
Yeah.
then a
I look
tool
at
like Zapier
Zapier
came
as
along.
fittings in a hardware store. It's the U connector, it's the L connector, because we have it connect like our Zoom registrations to our webinar register. You know what I mean? Like, it
Yeah.
connects things. It makes workflows. Um,
Yeah.
but it can get super complicated because our softwares won't talk to each other.
Hmm. And that's where I think we'll see more and more in the AI world too, is more tools and solutions that are kind of the wrapper, if you will, that sits on top of all of the best tools for all these different things to provide the right inputs and the right prompts and all the information that's needed to actually get you a good output, as opposed to you having to sit down in front of Claude or whatever it is and like think about, okay, what are all the right prompts to get to the right thing that I need? well, somebody's now built it for you to do this, that, or the other thing. So I think we're going to see more and more of that just as we get further into AI usage and AI
Mhm.
adoption. Because
I
right now,
also
those tools are just open-ended for you to do whatever you want with, but it doesn't give you any guardrails to help you do this one thing really
And
effectively
it
or efficiently.
doesn't understand what's different from a nonprofit and a for-profit business. It has no concept to reason that I wouldn't say a different moral compass, but a different. So, for example, Nathan, when we worked at nonprofits and another nonprofit called you up and said, "Hey, I'm working on this. I really could use some help." You helped them, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the level. That's one of the things I love the most. That was the start of our samples gallery is, hey,
Mm,
the YMCA will give their samples so someone else can learn from it. Like we're a community
yeah.
versus when my dad worked in business in snack foods, it was a war because you didn't share because it was like secrets. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Uh-huh.
And you didn't share your knowledge, and AI doesn't understand that.
No.
The other one it doesn't understand that's very interesting to me is and I don't know how to explain this to people who come into our industry from just for profit and haven't had any exposure, but I'm like, okay, so St. Jude's doesn't put down Cleveland Clinic so that it can raise more money. It's not Coke versus Pepsi. Do you know what I mean? Where Coke is like Pepsi tastes like crap, or Taco
Right.
Bell's like don't go to Del Taco. And AI, if you ask it to write for your nonprofit, it will diss another nonprofit
Ooh, yikes.
in its writings, and I'm like, okay, so we don't do that here. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
in university land, we'll do that in sports. I'm like, I'm a Gamecock. Like we'll make fun and poo poo Clemson, but when it all comes down to it, if you go to Clemson, that's fine. We're happy that you're supporting it.
Sure.
If you give to Clemson, I'm happy you're supporting education, right? Like we don't have
Yep.
wars, but AI still thinks that we're quote unquote in competition with each other.
Yeah. That's that's scary. There is so much that it doesn't understand about how to be an effective fundraiser that you have to teach it. I think one of my kind of favorite examples of that too is if you think about if you're going to go ask any of those tools, like Claude, it's Gemini, it's whatever, to go write your newsletter. You could give it all the right inputs of like, here's the 5 things that we want to talk about. Even go say, hey, go look at these links, go understand what it's about. It's got all the info to do it, but its understanding of what's an effective email is it's going to go look at the majority of content that's out there, and it's going to start to create this format for a big kind of branded email newsletter, which that's the majority of the junk that we get in our inbox. It's trained on
Yes.
the majority, but an effective fundraiser knows that the most effective emails are usually not the ones that are heavily branded with all the imagery. They're a human email written from Lynne, signed by Lynne, that sounds authentic and like you just woke up this morning and you wrote this note and you sent it to a donor with a couple of links. But doesn't
Yeah.
know that unless you've actively trained it and trained it and trained it and reminded it over and over again that this is what's effective.
Yeah. Yeah, and that the whole purpose the one thing that helped me with a turn, as I call it, towards my view of AI and how I was working in it and working with it was someone said, I said, I don't understand why it's making crap up, like the fake
Mm,
citations. And as a person who gets cited a lot, I don't want someone fake citing me, like you and I are both super active on LinkedIn. And I was listening to Brene Brown and Adam Grant talk about how
mm,
they have a new podcast out. And it's really interesting because the two of them disagreed for a long time on something. And now they're trying to come together and work out their issues. And it
interesting.
all started when Adam clipped a part of Brene Brown's research, but
Okay.
didn't read the full context of it. And you and I probably have been quoted by people, like uh, somebody has quoted me saying, "Oh, you shouldn't ask for money for donors." I said, "No, you shouldn't ask for money for donors in the same communication you thank them in." That I don't believe in. That's called a
Right.
fast. I made it up, and it's rude because you wouldn't do it ever. You wouldn't say, "Grandma, thanks for my birthday present. Christmas is coming." Okay.
Right.
And yes, some people claim it's a fundraising technique that works, but it also kills your retention. So I'm going long term. So clipping things out of context, AI is there to please you, the user,
Mhm.
and it will do whatever it takes to give you the outcome that it thinks you want. That helped me have a big turn in how I prompt AI as well and how I consider it. I don't need to be happy. I want it to be the best for the recipient, not for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
But I have to say that explicitly, and I shouldn't have to say that to software that's supposed to. That's why, again, assistive, not artificial, because if it had the intelligence, it would know not to clip or, take things. And I think the other thing is, you're right, the weight, where it places this equal weight on, and this has been interesting as a person who, like you, has a lot of content. It places equal weight on a blog post from someone who claims to be a fundraising expert or has a website that has a blog and good SEO or good AI SEO versus someone who's like done research studies. We'll give the example of Penelope Burke, who surveyed hundreds of thousands of donors.
Yeah.
Right. Like the queen of all genesis of a lot of data, or an Adrian Sargent, right? Like real legitimate, like peer-reviewed research,
researchers.
Russell James, like people that we go to and go, hey, do you have any data on this? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It weights that the same as a blog post written by AI posted on some random's website or their LinkedIn, who didn't do any research, but they have an opinion about it and didn't cite any sources.
Right.
And that's what people don't realize. So I think part of our conversations are to have these vulnerable moments, Nathan, where we say, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, that's, we've done all of that and we've looked at this, and herein lies the human part of this, so that we know what we're getting out of this.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, if you are using your Claude, your ChatGPT, your Gemini, your whatever, to do some type of research or to pull that kind of information to help you write a better campaign strategy, like ask it to cite sources. And that's something we do even inside of Avid. If you're using that to go generate a full campaign, is anytime that you use it to go generate copy, it's going to pull in all the sources. It's going to tell you exactly where this information came from. So you could say, well, don't trust this one, get rid of this one, rethink about this one, add the context here. That's the only way you're going to get a quality product. But that's just, I mean, I don't think we all think about that all the time, but that's just a quick little tip. Anytime you're using that, ask it to cite.
That is a great tip. We're going to build that one into the webinar series, but cite the sources and then go check out the sources.
Yeah.
Click the links, right? Because
especially the ones from Reddit. Go make sure that's real quality stuff.
I have learned a lot from Reddit, and a lot of knowledge I never thought I needed to know from Reddit as well. I don't know, Nathan, if you've ever been down some of the dark holes of Reddit, but I'm like, wow, people have a lot of time on their hands, it seems.
That is what shocks me the most about Reddit. It's like, I have never posted on there. I know there's people that do it all the time. Like, with what time do you have to go do this? I'm grateful this information is here, but who's just sitting around all the time just posting updates to this? I don't get it.
So in the new algorithms, Google search, AI search, all that now takes Reddit posts into account when it gives you that summary, And so my marketing person was like, we got to look into you becoming, present on Reddit and some information. And I went to the nonprofit channel on Reddit and I read it for 3 days and said, I'm good. Like, I'm fine with just being number 4 on the Google search then and not being in the box, because
it's not worth it. No.
What I saw on Reddit scared the pants off of me in the nonprofit chat and what the conversations were. And I was like, because everybody has equal authority. Do you know what I mean? And everyone's opinion is counted the same. And I started reading some of the advice around like tax receipting and like DAFs paying pledges and things that are big no-nos. I was like, I have to go. I now am sad that this exists and that people are giving out not so great advice. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I can't fix this. So I got to go. I got to bail. I'm sorry, team. And they were like, I was like, I tried it, but there's some scary stuff happening out there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, thanks.
And they could downvote me because I'm like, actually, that's illegal. And the IRS would say, or your 501c3 would be at jeopardy for this. Here's the link to the facts. And they'd be like, boo. And I'm like, I'm good. I'll stay here. So our friend Adam says, in a world where our donors are beginning to assume everything is written by AI, do you think shorter informal notes are going to feel more authentic? Seems like the formal 3-paragraph letter from an executive fall flat these days. I will tell you, Adam, the formal 3-paragraph letter chunked at about 2020. COVID ruined I haven't done a formal 3-paragraph letter. And first of all, letter, right? Like whole generations now no longer know what a letter is. I don't know if you've seen the hilarious video of Jimmy Kimmel. He challenges college students to put an address and a stamp on an envelope.
Oh, I think I did see this. Yeah.
And the last student really, and they all muck it up, but the last student mucks it up. And then the reporter, Jimmy Kimmel's guy's like, and where do you go to college? And she's like, Harvard.
God.
And because that would be like asking an 80-year-old though to innately use TikTok and figure it out on their own, right? Like that's like asking a young person to dial a rotary telephone. So
Mhm.
the way we communicate, the format of communication. So I will tell you this, Adam, you've got less than 2 to 3 seconds to catch a donor's attention. And 3 paragraphs, I don't you I got you you either have to be my mother, I'll read your 3 paragraphs. Be someone very close and very important or have something very, very interesting to say, like, Real Housewives information, or B, pay me a lot of money to read more than 3 paragraphs. I'm just being, and our top donors, the one thing they don't have, a billionaire doesn't have, a multimillionaire doesn't have, is time. And so we teach, snacks, not meals. Nathan, when we do digital content, are you of the same? So we used to serve, just like at home, we used to serve a 3-course dinner. You had your salad, you had your main, and the dessert, right? And that's how America and society lived. And we took the time to sit as a family. Now people graze all day, girl dinner and charcuteries and, eating in the car on the go. Or if you live in New York City, eating while you walk, right?
Mhm.
We recommend that for communications. It's not
Yeah.
how many communications I send, it's small little snacks. People love those, like the skim and others. People hate that you send them frequent communications that are 9 scrolls.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm really interested in this because we would do a lot of testing. The agency I was at before, we did a lot of testing, particularly in email on that exact topic. And what's fascinating is that, and so this is 2-year-old data, but I haven't seen any to contradict it yet.
Mhm.
The shorter, more to the point type of stuff generally would get more clicks. You'd get more people to say, "Oh, that's interesting," hit the button, go to the page, read something more. But usually the longer form would get more people giving. So if it's an appeal and that's the goal is donations, that's what I've seen actually be most effective is that longer form. But even then, that still assumes that you have this isn't someone who's like net new. You've just interacted with
Right.
them for the first time. They've taken those little kind of snack bites, if you will, to start to build some level of trust, and they're already leaning in. Um, so that's interesting. It's an interesting world to continue to test because behavior online is shifting so much.
Yes.
I've seen a lot of people on LinkedIn even lately just complaining about like the short one-liners. Nobody writes any paragraphs anymore. Like, but that's also the reality of how people consume content. Is you right? It's in these quick little kind of soundbite moments. Now that can be frustrating when you have a lot that you feel like you need to communicate, but it changes the way we think about how we structure our communication. If I only have enough time, if I have 3 seconds to feed you one bit of information, okay, then when's the next touch point? And how do I structure this in a way where I'm reminding you of the things you need to know in a way that you're actually going to consume? So it's definitely changing our strategy in terms of how we reach people online.
Yeah, I love it. Well, Nathan, this has been great. Thank you again for your partnership, for your knowledge. If you're not following Nathan on LinkedIn, please follow him and the folks at Avid. They share, and the gift that they have given us of the data is absolutely phenomenal. I can't tell you how meaningful it is. At DRG, we have always been gift first. So the Pulse survey, because you need information and data in order to do your job. And it's not us in the partner world to keep it from you. It's for us to provide to you and help you use it. And that is the mission of a lot of our companies, and to help you walk alongside you. So if you do want to check out Avid, please do so. They've been nothing but generous. They're also great, fun people. So if you're going to AFP Icon, you can hang out with us in San Diego, but also follow Nathan on LinkedIn, and we will see you all in 2 weeks. Thanks again, everybody. Thanks, Nathan, and have a great day. Thank you again.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.